This is Ecotricity's ecoTEC roundup show from Aotearoa's first and only climate-positive certified renewable electricity provider. We only source from wind, hydro and solar, and we are the leading supplier of electricity to EVs in Aotearoa. Switch today at ecotricity.co.nz. Welcome back to another roundup of news from the world of clean cars and green energy. Thanks for joining me. We start today's show with an update on the joint partnership between Rivian and Volkswagen into a joint vehicle architecture for EVs. Announced just over a month ago, the partnership will see the creation of a new jointly owned company which will leverage Rivian's software-defined vehicle smarts to engineer a next-generation hardware and software platform that both companies will use for future EVs. Since Volkswagen is a German company, it had to gain official approval from the Federal Cartel Office in Germany, otherwise known as, and please forgive my terrible German, the Bundeskartellamt. The agency has examined the details of the partnership and, after determining that it won't violate antitrust regulation, has given Volkswagen and Rivian the green light to proceed. For many years now, Audi has slowly been rolling out all-electric versions of some of its most popular models, and this week it did just that with the Audi A6. Midweek, the brand unveiled its all-new Audi A6 e-tron family in both Sportback and Avant, or wagon guises, with a couple of different powertrain options, including S-badged variants. Built on the same PPE platform as the already launched Q6 e-tron, the A6 e-tron has a 94.9 kilowatt-hour usable battery pack that's capable of charging at up to 270 kilowatts as standard at a compatible 800-volt fast charging station. But what's perhaps the most impressive is the claimed range of the aerodynamic A6 Sportback e-tron, 756 kilometres or 470 miles on the WLTP test cycle. Pricing to follow, but for US wagon fans, I'm afraid Audi isn't going to sell the wagon variant in North America. Surprise, surprise. Police in Washington state, USA, have just released official data showing that a fatal collision between a Tesla Model S and a motorcyclist in Snohomish in April did involve FSD beta. While the incident happened in April, the driver of the Model S admitted that he was not paying attention to the road ahead and was using, quote, autopilot while looking at his phone. But forensic analysis since of the onboard computer shows that he had activated and was relying on full self-driving beta at the time of the collision. While Tesla does tell its owners not to rely on the system and to remain alert and ready to resume control, this is the latest in a series of fatalities involving motorcyclists in which Tesla's system has failed to identify and react to them. We need better legislation concerning autonomous features and tougher penalties for those who abuse said features. And as always, please give motorcyclists more space. As the world's largest manufacturer of plug-in vehicles and the second largest of battery electric vehicles, BYD is a force to be reckoned with, and its EV models offer affordable options for EV ownership in many different markets. To date, BYD hasn't sold passenger cars in the US or Canada, although its truck and bus division does manufacture and sell vehicles to both markets. Last week, we covered the news that BYD is launching more models south of the US border in Mexico, and this week we learned that it submitted paperwork to Canadian authorities as part of its goal of ultimately entering the Canadian market. While we don't know which models would be launched or when, there's a lot of red tape ahead of BYD before the sales can happen. As for imports to the US, sadly you just can't import cars from Canada or Mexico unless they're approved for use in the country. Sorry. When Ford launched its F150 Lightning a few years ago, it unveiled a new vehicle-to-home system in partnership with Sunrun and Delta that allows F150 Lightning owners to power their home in a power cut using the battery in their truck. I happen to own one of these systems, and aside from some early teething problems, it's allowed us to keep our rural home running in power cuts and brownouts alike. And this week, Ford and Sunrun announced the successful launch of a vehicle-to-grid program with Baltimore Gas and Electric. Utilising smart grid technology built into every Ford home integration system, F150 Lightning owners that are customers of the utility can now opt to feed power from their trucks to the local grid during peak power events to reduce the need for peaker power plants. Owners are estimated to receive around $800 for taking part in the program over a 4-month period. The state of California and the European Union were both celebrating new renewable energy milestones this week, and we have to share the good news too. On July 28th, the state of California hit the 100th day this year in which renewable energy, that's wind, water and solar, generated more power than the state's grid consumed. While it doesn't mean that the state operated without fossil fuels or that renewable energy was provided around the clock, it means that the electrical grid was able to meet 100% of grid demand using just renewable energy for time periods of between 5 minutes to several hours. Meanwhile, in Europe, the EU is celebrating the fact that for the first half of this year, the grid consumed more wind and solar-derived energy than fossil fuel-derived energy for the very first time in history. Well done, both! Ford's SAE Level 2 driver assistance system, BlueCruise, has been operational in the US and Canada for several years now on BlueCruise-equipped vehicles that include some of its EV models. The UK, Spain and Germany gained BlueCruise capabilities last year, and this week Ford confirmed it's received approval to offer BlueCruise in 13 new European markets: Austria, Belgium, the Czech Republic, Denmark, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Poland and Sweden. Ford says this means BlueCruise can now be used on more than 82,000 miles of highways in Europe. The system must be fully supervised at all times and, like all ADAS systems, can still fail in unexpected ways. J.D. Power has published its 2024 US Automotive Performance, Execution and Layout Study, otherwise known as the Appeal Study, and there are some big changes. Tesla, while not officially eligible due to award criteria, has continued a downward movement from previous years' surveys, falling from number 1 in 2020 through to number 4 last year and number 8 this. Meanwhile, Rivian has shot to unofficial first place. It, like Tesla and Polestar, doesn't meet the official criteria that J.D. Power has set out. Scoring 900 out of 1,000 points for its design, performance, safety, usability, comfort, perceived quality and ownership experience, it's another sign that Tesla's position in the electric marketplace is far from secure. Sticking with Tesla, new crowdsourced data via Tesla FSD tracker is tracking the rollout of its latest iteration of full self-driving supervised, aka 12.5. And while there is a noticeable increase in the number of miles driven between interventions in the latest iteration, nearly double what it was in 12.3, a massive improvement, it's a long way from the promises made by Tesla's CEO in the past. This has led him to comment on social media that Tesla has a clear path to doubling average miles between interventions this month. But in related news, it's now starting to show signs of reaching the limit of its Autopilot Hardware 3 system, pushing the latest FSD supervised software update only to vehicles with Hardware 4 as, quote, Hardware 3 would run the same parameter count but requires extra work to optimize the code, end quote. Like any operating system, older hardware equals less wiggle room for extra software. And finally for this segment, BMW has officially confirmed slight tweaks to its 2025 model year lineup for the i4 electric Grand Coupe. Its entry-level guys, the i4 eDrive 40 rear-wheel drive with 18-inch wheels, will now be capable of up to 318 miles, that's 511 11 kilometres per charge, which is up 5.5% range-wise on last year's comparable variant. But it's not all about improvements. The range-topping i4 M50 with all-wheel drive and a sub-4-second sprint time, when fitted with 19-inch wheels, actually sees its official EPA range drop by 2 miles to 267 miles, 429 kilometres for the 2025 model year, while its 20-inch wheeled sibling remains exactly the same as last year. Having driven that particular vehicle, I can say it's fun, but I can also say you won't get anywhere near that quoted range if you drive it hard, which, believe me, you probably will want to do. Before we get to the last two stories, a quick question. Are you in the market for a new EV? Because if you are, and you live in Aotearoa, you should totally check out our very own buyer's guide at ecotricity.co.nz. It is packed with tons of information you need to pick a car that's right for you and includes plenty of details about life with an EV and so much more. So follow the link below and start your journey today. For some time now, Volvo has maintained it's no longer interested in selling internal combustion engine vehicles and sees its future as being one that's exclusively electric. In fact, it made a big noise when its final internal combustion engine non-hybrid vehicle rolled off the line. And for nearly a year now, it's promised that it will be electric only after 2030. But just as other automakers have dropped back their goals, so too has Volvo, with the company admitting this week that it may end up making hybrid vehicles for a little while longer as part of a, quote, solid bridge for our customers that are not ready to move to full electrification, end quote. While it's good to see that Volvo is still wanting to become an all-electric company in the end, it's disheartening to see yet another automaker renege previous all-electric promises. And finally, shortly after the Tesla Cybertruck launched, there was something of a craze going around where people were demonstrating the vehicle's ability to chop appendages and vegetables when closing doors and frunks. Tesla pushed a software update that helped rectify the frunk chopping problem, which then led to people putting their actual fingers in the frunk mechanism to prove that things were better. And now apparently that practice has spread to other EVs with frunks. This week, someone published a video of a Silverado EV trapping their finger painfully in the frunk mechanism when closing, something we'd frankly advise you don't do. But not to be outdone, a Tesla Cybertruck owner who wanted to demonstrate how rough and tough their vehicle was decided to walk on the roof and the windscreen of their truck for it to crack under their weight. Here's an idea, maybe. Just maybe we can stop doing questionable things to EVs to prove how awesome they are and just drive them instead. And on that note, we are done for the day. Before I go though, do make sure you've hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on the latest in EV news from this channel. And of course, if you haven't switched yet, why not switch to Aotearoa's first and only climate positive certified renewable electricity provider. It is super easy to make the switch and you'll be helping the nation wean itself off dirty energy and onto clean green power that will keep the land beautiful for generations to come. I'll be back next week as usual, and in the meantime, do check out other videos on this channel, including those from the lovely Gavin Kiwi Evie Shoebridge. So until next time, I'm Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield. Have an amazing week. See you soon. Ka kite!